Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé. Let's watch.
It's good after sex he invited me somewhere. It gives me hope.
Josh is surrounded by models all the time.
Yeah, let's go.
And it is important for me putting up makeup and dress to meet Josh's friends to show that I'm fabulous, beautiful.
Hi.
Hey, you. How are you?
Good.
You look beautiful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, does he seem like the kind of guy that after having sex would just stand up and walk out of the room in a cold way? Do we imagine that that's what happened? I mean, maybe it did, but I'm just going to take a guess and say that on average, he was actually a lot more kind than he's been pretty kind up in this. He's rolled with the punches. She has, just watched the previous video, she has absolutely attacked him unfairly, not in a high degree level, but in a way that for some people on a first or second date would be like, yeah, this isn't going to work. I'm just going to take a guess and say that he is pretty forgiving and also pretty nice when it comes to those kinds of things. Now, I'm not saying, if Natalie were my friend, I wouldn't say, you should totally trust him. I would say, you have no idea who this guy is. He could be anybody. He could be a serial killer. He could be the next Gandhi. Who knows? There's no way to know because you barely know each other. And so, just have a good time, but don't trust him entirely. Not that you're pushing back, but you're just being realistic about things, Like, I'll just talk about for myself. I care about Natalie. I want things to work out for her. When I think about Josh, I'm like, could be a super nice guy, could also be totally fake and sleazy, and who knows? There's a pretty wide range of what he could be like, right? And so for me, caring about Natalie, I'm hopeful, but I'm also like, well, who knows what this kind of guy is, what he's capable of. I guess when I think about it, I'd love to hear from his past partners, right? Particularly his last partner. Well, not the last partner, but he has 2 kids from 2 previous relationships. So I'd want to talk to the second relationship individual because the first one he said he was really young, so it's hard to gauge someone based on their early 20s relationships. But the second one, presumably there'd be a little bit more data there and knowledge about what that individual is like. You can't always trust that though, because like with Georgie's ex, it seemed like there was some bias there. It's not like your former partners aren't without their traumas and their delusions. But anyway, I guess that's really what it's all about. Is I'm terrified for Natalie. I don't know about her personality or what's going on with her, but I would say 10 to 15, 20% of my career has been working with clients like Natalie. I specialize in people with these schemas, personality disorders, this kind of thing. I'm not diagnosing her, I have no idea, but these individuals are often in a state of feeling rejected and harmed and worthless and get treated that way seemingly by people in their lives, will engineer their lives in a way that make it so that they get treated that way. Then they go to therapy and the therapist doesn't really know what they're doing, or there's just there's a rupture that happens and the client walks away feeling like yet again they're being rejected and harmed and they can't turn anywhere, right? And so I have a great deal of compassion for those individuals because it's not their fault. They were harmed when they were young. They were mistreated when they were young. They were neglected when they were young. That's obviously not their fault. And they developed schemas. That's not their fault. They had reactions from that schemas. That's not their fault. And so I get tremendous professional satisfaction, but also just like life satisfaction, right? The ability to help someone truly, to help them feel like they are worth it, that people can be trusted, that the world isn't out to get them, that people can love as much as they love, that their reactivity is understandable. Doesn't make it okay, morally speaking or ethically, but it's understandable where they're coming from. It takes a long time to work with these individuals, 5, 10, 15 years. I will have to have those kinds of relationships with those people, and it's not easy for me, but it's very gratifying. And so when I see individuals like this without any seemingly treatment around them, any kind of awareness around what they're going through, I'm. It's almost. I don't know. I guess I'm just terrified this is going to go badly for her, and it's just going to be another moment where she will. Yeah. I just wish they would go to therapy. Just like. But of course, if they all went to therapy, they wouldn't be interesting enough to be on a reality TV show, I guess. But I don't know. I'd watch that. I'd watch a show in which they all went to therapy and got better and then had regular relationships. But it's not like going to therapy would solve everything, right? But it would just help them to get on a path. I don't know.
How are you?
Good, I'm fine.
Good. You look good.
Thank you.
You look smashing.
What does it mean?
Smashing, stunning, beautiful, gorgeous.
Even though Josh compliments me on my look, I am frustrated with Josh because, I don't know what to think, and it's my last day in LA. I need to have reassurance of him, being into me and be committed to me.
Yikes. I think this is their third date. It sounds like she's only been in LA for a few days. I thought she was going to live in LA, so she's only going to be there for a little bit of time. Going back to Florida, I guess. And yeah, that's doomed. What the? There's just very little chance that this is going to last. One, because of long distance, and that's just hard. Two, when she leaves, even if he is into her tremendously, which doesn't seem likely given that it's their third date, but even if he was, eventually he's probably going to be like, I don't know if this is going to work because it's long distance. Or at the very least, when she's separated from him for even just a few days or a few weeks, that paranoia is going to kick in when she goes back to Florida, and then she's going to text, and it's going to be hostile, and he's going to be like, well, I don't even understand why I'm putting up with this, and then they will be broken up. So it's notable that she is pouring all of her hopes and dreams into a relationship that is extremely unlikely to work out just on paper, right? And similar to Mike, right? That's a similar process that a lot of people on the show will do, right? They'll just pour all of their hopes and dreams into a relationship that when you just look at the facts on paper, it's just like there's pretty low likelihood of this working out, right? I mean, there's enough barriers to a relationship when you live in the same town, let alone when you're, thousands of miles apart. So yeah, I'm just terrified. And then we hear her say, I need reassurance that, I don't know the exact, let's rewind it, but it's, she's looking for reassurance that essentially he's 100% committed, that he's exclusive to her, he plans on getting married and having kids. So what's the chance that he's going to say that? It's just, he would be dumb to say that. How would he know that? Anyway, let's rewind.
I need to have reassurance of him, being into me and be committed to me.
I need reassurance that he's into me and being committed to me. Now, there's nothing wrong with her saying, I would like a committed, exclusive relationship with you. I'm really into you. I'm about to leave. And that's what I would like. She's perfectly fine in saying that. And he's perfectly fine in saying, I don't know. I mean, I'm into you too. We've had 3 dates. I'd love to see where this goes. Because that would be the rational thing for anyone. And again, she's fine for asking that, but I don't know. Maybe he will. Maybe he will commit.
So how was your morning? What did you do for the morning?
I just hung out in the room.
Okay. Well, I had a lot of meetings today, but we're going to meet some of my friends.
Good.
How do you feel about that?
I tell you what, I am who I am. Either I'm accepted, either no.
Are you nervous?
No. I'm gonna be myself.
Okay, one, we hear detail that he had a lot of meetings for work, so that's why he had to leave. Two, he's like, we're going to meet up with friends. I would not recommend that. It's just more chaos that she's going to, who knows, maybe it'll go fine, but I don't know if she's secure enough to handle that. And then two, right off the bat, she's like, well, they're either going to like me or they're not. I mean, just imagine that you're bringing your girlfriend-ish sort of person, and she's like, well, fine, but they're going to like me or they're not going to like me. Now, maybe it's a translation issue or something, and then he detects accurately. So he's like, wait, are you nervous? And she's, no, I'm not going to be nervous. I'm not nervous. I'm just going to be myself. I think she's nervous. I think she's absolutely terrified, actually.
Okay. You seem a little irritated today.
Because.
Oh, because what?
Do you know why?
I don't. I mean, I know.
Okay.
This is so classic. And, God bless Natalie. She's trying her best, of course, and she's doing pretty well. given what I think she's capable of doing, given her triggers and her pattern. But so he's detecting that she is in a bad mood, that she's irritated with him, which I think is probably because she was narrativizing the situation as he just had sex with her and then bounced and said, see ya. Or maybe not even that, just like turned away and walked out of the room, which I'm guessing didn't really happen, but that's how she's framing it in her mind. That's how it felt to her. And then she is now irritated with him, hurt by him, maybe passive aggressively trying to communicate that. And or she is just terrified of a conversation regarding exclusivity or something, and or she's terrified about meeting his friends. I don't know if I showed the clip, but she said that he hangs out with a lot of models, and so she wants to compete with that, and so she's nervous about not comparing well to his coworkers or something. So who knows what exactly she's irritated about, but then he detects it. Third date, everything's going well, and they barely know each other. And he's already picking up, he already knows the signs that she is irritated with him, which she has been a number of times, even though they barely know each other and they've had this is like, 15 minutes into their third date. So that's pretty classic to preoccupied people. I don't know if she's preoccupied, but it's pretty classic that, particularly if you're a high degree of preoccupied or even disorganized, which I will add as a possibility, that it's not preoccupied, it's disorganized, fearful. Listen to my episodes on that, because there's a pretty big distinction between those two. They can often look similar, but what's happening underneath is really quite different. But anyway, so for people that are dating individuals like that, or just around individuals like that, you will often have that feeling like, are they irritated with me? And you'll have a sense of fear. You'll have a sense of like, did I do something wrong? Over time, you end up walking on eggshells around individuals like this if they don't go to therapy, if they're not aware of what's happening, if they're not in recovery of their attachment injury. So right away, we see that sort of classic dynamic. Are you irritated? Let's rewind.
Okay. You seem a little irritated today.
Because.
Oh, because what?
You know why?
I mean.
And then and she's smiling, so that's mitigating some of the problem here. But instead of saying, because he's opening the conversation, he's cool enough, because Mike wouldn't really do this, right? Mike is not, he either doesn't notice, or he shuts down, or internalizes, or just gets angry himself or something. So this fella has the emotional intelligence or maturity or the capacity to notice it. It was probably happening for a little bit of time, and then he turns and says, you seem irritated. And he wasn't attacking her, it was inviting. And she says, because. And then he says, well, what's it about? And then she says, you know why. He's like, I actually don't know why. Why would you do that? Well, she's terrified of being more vulnerable. She's hurt by something that she made up in her mind, and she is not wanting to overextend herself because she's worried that he's not going to care. And this is universal for all of us. All of us are like Natalie almost all the time whenever we are hurt by our partners. We almost never, I would say 99.9% of the time, the healthiest person probably 95% of the time will not be vulnerable to their partner about it and say, hey, the other day you hurt my feelings, or hey, the other day I didn't like it when you did this. Now, of course, you always want to word it in a non-accusatory, non-hostile manner, because you don't know the situation and it goes over better when you say it that way. Plus, a lot of our irritation with our partners, all of us have made up a story in our minds that are probably not accurate. So you always want to say it tentatively, just like, so I don't know if I'm just being oversensitive, but yesterday when you did this, it hurt my feelings. I'm sure you didn't mean it that way, but that's, so she could say that. She could say, so, I don't know if I'm overly sensitive, but this morning when you left, I guess I was just hoping that you'd stay longer and we could cuddle and kiss and I could just get some more reassurance that you loved me or cared about me and weren't just using me for sex, because I have that kind of sensitivity. And I'm guessing that you didn't mean it that way, but that's why I'm a little hurt. But, it's not necessarily your fault, but I'm just telling you like where I'm coming from right now. And that's why I'm a little irritable, I guess. She could totally say something like that, right? But to say that is a huge vulnerable act. To expose your vulnerability, to talk about your vulnerability is a massively vulnerable act. Because when you do that, the worry is the other person isn't going to care or they're going to attack me, because we've all been through that, right? Mostly because when we are vulnerable, we're not actually vulnerable. We don't word it tentatively. We attack. We come out of the gates in a hostile manner because we've been building up all this anger for the past week or something, or 48 hours. And the other person naturally will get defensive. And then we're like, see, no one cares about my feelings. When it's like, well, we didn't come at them in a way that was conducive. Now, both people can improve on this dynamic. You can bring up issues in a more tentative, non-accusatory, non-hostile manner, more tentative manner. But even if you're the recipient of someone that isn't doing that very well to you, if for instance, for him, if he were if the two of them were in therapy and they describe, say this escalates into some kind of a fight or something, I would tell her what I said earlier, but I'd also tell him, look, if we're going to make this work, you both have to do everything you can to mitigate conflict and to increase trust and understanding. And so you want to be able to read between the lines. So when she said this, when she said that, what do you think was going on there? And he might say, well, I don't know. She gets pretty upset about some random things. Okay, well, given her issues, particularly long, into a relationship, you usually can take a guess as to what would have triggered your partner. So I'm guessing by, year 2 or 3, he would be able to predict, it's like, well, I think it was probably because I was really busy in the morning and I just got up, and I'm pretty drowsy in the morning too until I get my coffee. And so I probably wasn't very kind, or I wasn't warm to her in a way that I think she really wants me to be in the morning. I'm kind of a go-getter business type person. And so I'm guessing that's why she's hurt. And then I say, okay, so with that guess in mind, how could you have approached it? Even though she wasn't being upfront, even though she wasn't being vulnerable, that's not your fault. But if everyone's going to do their part to increase trust, because say he were to turn to her right now and say, and I'm guessing he doesn't know what she's upset about because he doesn't know her very well at all. But if he did, he would say, oh, well, I'm guessing it's because of that reason. I wasn't warm in the morning. I'm kind of a go-getter business person in the morning, and so is that why you're upset at me? And because if so, I'm sorry, and I get that. And then she could, because he predicts it and validates it and also apologizes, it shows compassion, then she will feel more safe to actually agree and say, yeah, that is what it is actually. And then you rinse and repeat that, even though he's the one that's changing, then she trusts more. Also, she is changing her working model of self to reflect that she's worth people taking care of her. And thus, when she has a trigger, she has something to stand on of just like, well, my feelings are okay because he has shown me that my feelings are okay. And I can trust other people because he's shown me that I can trust other people. And so I can actually be vulnerable with what's actually happening because I don't have to play games. I don't have to say this, well, you know why, that kind of thing. And so when I'm working with individuals, so, say Josh came into therapy individually with me and say Natalie wasn't in therapy at all. I've worked with many Joshes who have partners like Natalie, and we can do things to actually engineer corrective experiences, essentially therapeutic experiences for their partner, even though their partner isn't in therapy. Ideally, both of them would be in therapy, individual and couple, but I have worked a lot with that. So if you ever have a partner you're really struggling with, obviously the first thing to do is to try to get them into therapy, particularly individual and couple therapy. But if that doesn't work, because it often doesn't, is you can actually go to therapy, talk with the therapist about, you'd have to find someone that knows how to do this kind of thing. Sometimes you want to find a couple therapist, actually, because a couple therapist can imagine what the other person is like. Finding a pure individual therapist, they might not be used to thinking systemically and how both people are triggering each other. Anyway, I don't want to put down individual therapists, but that's just my thoughts on that. But the reason why I say that is because when I treat couples and families, which has been, say half of my practice over 25 years, the other half being individual adults, I learn there's always another side to the story. And so I'll hear a story from one client, and then I'll hear another story, and I will have to figure out, like, well, what really happened? There's probably a third story, right? Whereas if you only see individuals the entirety of your career, you never get that really visceral experience of hearing the other person's story, and thus you can become overly convinced of your individual client's points of view. Not that I'm always pushing back and saying to a client, well, I'm skeptical of everything you're saying. That's not what I'm, but particularly when it comes to couple conflict, right? When people are reporting their fights. I mean, all we have to do is watch 90 Day Fiance and learn that, right? You think about Ed and Liz, each of them saying like a completely different version, particularly Ed, right? And so if you just believed Ed's story, you would have this very distorted point of view about what actually happened. Anyway, all right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself and take care of others, because we all deserve it. We really, really do.